With your help, we can continue to fight for freedom, reach new audiences, and bring important information to the public free of charge. This is not possible without your generosity. Join our quest for the truth and our freedom and donate today, telling it as it is. This is today's News Talk, The World Today.
Welcome to the Country Telegraph part of the world today. Nice to have your company too. Some big guests coming up, some great talks, some great chats about some of the, it's still to do with farming, but some of the garbage that surrounds the farming and some of the issues that are affecting not only yourselves, our neighbourhood, our local area, but the entire planet. And we're going to actually look at some of those too, such as climate change. Now, climate change, it's a disaster. Now, we actually are having an experience of climate change there with Wade. It looks like he's been burnt to a crisp. Wade Northausen is founder of Billboard Battalion. What happened to your mush? You're looking a bit orange, mate.
Yeah, no, I've been doing a fair bit of work out in the sun, Mike. So yeah,
Really?
We put up a fair bit of time at the Elmore Field Days. It was pretty warm out there, and so we've been doing a lot of work outside the last few days. So yeah, we're probably changing colour a little bit, mate.
Oh, you are, but your filter on your camera, it looks orange. So I'm just thinking, are you the Australian version of the orange man from the US? We have Wade Trump, maybe. You got more hair though than him. Now, climate change. Now, this concept has been pushed by not only government and the green activists. Ooh, we're going to boil, freeze, something's going to happen. The world is not flat. But peak bodies such as the NFF or the NFF and the VF, Victorian Farmers Federation, all those, they're all pushing this climate change garbage. And some of the farmers, I have to say, are buying it. First of all, farmers should know that it's all BS. How do we get around that? And what is the attitude of farmers towards, generally, that you've come across, towards climate change, Wade?
Well, I think that for a start, the National Farmers Federation, they've been pushing this garbage for a long time now, particularly after under the ex-president of National Farmers Federation, Fiona Simpson. You know, they toddle off to the COP28, COP29 events, which is just a indoctrination fest for people who they can suck in to push this crap. So what we're seeing is a lot of farmers now are going, hang on a minute. There's more and more people who are speaking out, and there's more and more people saying, well, this does not add up. The things that the so-called settled science was told to us, 30 years ago, has not occurred. And they're now starting to see that the so-called policies to mitigate against this fraudulent climate change are now costing them some real money and real problems. And they can see going into the very near future that they're not going to be able to afford to pay the costs and the taxes and all the levies and conform to the net zero by 2050 fraud. So they're starting to actually voice their opinion. And I know that the current president of the Victorian Farmers Federation, Brett Hosking, had to give up his position when he became elected as the president of VFF. Had to give up his position on the board of. I think we might have mentioned Farmers for No Farmers. The Farmers for Climate Action. So, we've got some big players who are on the case pushing this climate change crap. But I think that they're starting to realise they have to pull back. But there's a few more things that are happening, Mike, that we can talk about in a second that I think are very, very important.
Okay, let's talk about those things. I'll come back to what you're saying a bit later. The stage is yours, Wade, as you would know anyway.
Well, look, thanks very much, Mike. So, there's I was talking to Malcolm Roberts just the other day from One Nation. He's a One Nation senator from Queensland. And there's a lot of pressure being put on the likes of Malcolm Roberts now and Pauline Hanson to try and censor them and censor anybody else with regard to speaking out against the whole climate change fraud and the policies. And so I'll actually be interviewing Malcolm Roberts on Billboard Battalion tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Victorian time. That's Wednesday. And this is getting very, very serious because there's a lot of heavily funded groups now that are in the business of pushing for censorship, to ban what they call misinformation and disinformation about climate change. Now, as Malcolm Roberts will talk to him tomorrow, and he's saying that the people who are spreading the disinformation and the misinformation, and in fact, my take, the very lies, are in fact the government, are the ministers and so on that they've put in place to push this climate change garbage. So therefore, we've got a very, very serious problem on our hands, and it's unfolding that they're going to end up with legislative power to shut down people who want to just simply tell the truth, and people who want to say, well, look, this climate change stuff is costing us a lot of money. The renewable sector is costing us a fortune. Power prices are going through the roof, and all the other restrictions that we're going to face under the alleged battle to fight climate change. You're going to find that you're going to be shut down, and I do believe, based on what we see in the likes of Canada and England, I think if people do try and say anything against it, they'll be prosecuted and or jailed.
Yeah, we Malcolm Roberts used to have a shift here with us. He was with us for a long time and has always been a guest. So Malcolm's a very good friend of the old TNT radio, or the TNT. In fact, Wade, we used to have we had a huge amount of. We had Patrick Moore on from the ex-Greenpeace, who was up in arms against Greenpeace. Had a whole bunch of people that would come on and dispel the myths that were perpetrated by government. And you're right, it is government that generally, and if you look at the state government, for example, in Victoria with renewables, we all know that they're telling big doo-doos. And so what we did, with TNT, I'm just sort of patting us on the back there.
Yep.
All the stuff, and we were talking about it the other day with someone, all the stuff that we did, whether it was COVID, whether it was all sorts of world issues, we never went to any one particular stance. We first of all reported the news, and then we said, okay, you guys are telling lies. And we had, huge. We had $9.5 million worth spent on this, and so we were right. Unfortunately, what it did do, and that's what we're finding now, and we thank you very much for your time, is that because we wouldn't play a particular game or follow someone's agenda, we sort of were on the outside. You find that, you probably find it yourself, but we had all the people that we had 50,000 interviews. And nobody has done that. 50,000 interviews. We had well over 20 million downloads just of our pods, and they were going to double. We had all sorts of we had just from the app alone 500,000 viewers. So we took it to task, and we took the lies, as you were saying, to task. It didn't do us much good though, because we're now little. But hopefully we can turn that around. And it's because of people like you, Wade, that it makes us fight on a bit more. And what you're doing though, you're not a conspiracy theorist by any stretch. You're from the bush. You're a good bloke, and you're just telling the truth. And that's where you're going to find yourself into trouble. And I think even though you get the VFF and all these, I will look after the farmers. Tell the farmers, where is their help for the interconnector, for example? That's the renewables that a lot of these organisations are pushing on behalf of government, whether it's state, local or federal. So all these organisations that, they've just gone silent. And again, you and a few others, it's just absolutely fantastic. And one of our guys, Jason Olborn, which has, I think, a program called 51st State or something, and a great show. And I mean, he'll be taking notes down because he uses, even now, a lot of our interviews and people that we get on. So expect a call because he will get hold of you. And I think you're just waving the flag, and I think that's just magnificent. So how do we stop government? Here's the thing. I mean, I've just interrupted you because you're going to tell us some stuff, but just quickly, how do we stop government from doing what they're doing?
So I think Mike and I did a number of interviews with Jason on TNT Radio back in a little while ago, and it's a fantastic job, amazing job. So what we've got to do is we've really got to push this into the public arena. We've got to push a lot of the public and a lot of the organisations to say, listen, we have to make people understand what's happening, and we need to push back on the politicians because at the minute they're the last thing that we've really got. The likes of Malcolm Roberts and One Nation, and we're starting to see the likes of Barnaby Joyce, Matt Canavan, a few of these others in the Nats. They're starting to push back on this stuff as well, and what they have to do even more so is call out things for being lies and fraud and tell people exactly what it's going to do. And, a lot of those politicians, they know every bit as much as what I do about who's really behind this. And that's the story that needs to come out, Mike. And this is why, we in Billboard Battalion, we go after the big fish, the big picture stuff, because that's the only thing that's going to make people understand. And I do notice that more and more people across Australia are starting to see government, what they call overreach, but it's a hell of a lot more than overreach. For example, in Western Australia now, they're starting to look at people who call themselves sovereign citizens. They're going to start cancelling their driver's licence and their car licences, banning their gun licences. I see that farmers in Western Australia now are having a hell of a lot of trouble with their shooters licences, and everyone knows farmers, you need guns for what you do. It's part of what you do. Trying to get rid of firearms out of the hands of farmers as a part of an all-over strategy. And in the ag sector, like if we look at the likes of Canada right now, there's issues going on across there with a farm that has ostriches. And, for a long time I've been saying in Australia they're building the biosecurity laws here that are going to be used to take down Australian agriculture. And so in Canada, we're seeing a specific example of exactly what I'm talking about, whereas, the Canadian so-called Food Inspection Agency, I think it's the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, they've raided a place, they've kicked people off, they've got the Canadian coppers involved there, and I believe they're killing the ostriches on this place under the banner of a couple of them tested for bird flu or something about a year ago. And, the bottom line is it's the World Health Organization that Canada is taking instructions for. And like I've said to farmers here, the international health regulations that they brought in gives the World Health Organization the power to kill your animals without compensation, without any proof of anything. They just come in and do it. So this is a massive, great big warning for Australian farmers to understand what I'm talking about and get with this program and understand they are here coming after you.
Yeah, that ostrich farm, I've been following it. They actually have I think about 2 weeks ago, they got a stay of execution. But I think it's in Quebec. The government there is still doing what it can to make it quite miserable, and they can't even go near those ostriches. The ostriches, which is interesting, their eggs are used to fight for research for avian flu.
Yep.
And you are right. It's It's the ostriches. Actually, you're being a bit generous. They have none of it. They don't fly. They don't do anything. They're quarantined just by their natural landscape where they're at, because they've got this great big fence around it. The people that look after them love these ostriches. They are their family. And you are dead right. This government, Canadian government, is doing all it can to destroy this farm, and it's acting on this avian flu garbage. And you're dead right, Wade. The World Health Organization can step in, and they can say, you know, you're going to hell in a breadbasket. And so again, that's another example of what you were just saying, how the governments, including Canada, which is WEF way through the WEF, and look at Justin Trudeau, now dating Katy Perry, but having said that, he was a WEF protege, and he was the Prime Minister of Canada. So it doesn't look good, does it?
Yeah, look, it certainly doesn't look good, Mike. And this is the kind of thing that you hope that the alarm clock goes off at 5 o'clock in the morning. You wake up and just realise this is one of those bad dreams. But the sad fact is, and the dangerous fact is, this is playing out in real terms, and this is our life. And they've systematically been building a system to take down farmers and food production. And this is where it's at. You know, I mean, those ostriches, they had some bird flu in amongst them, and as far as I understand, they've got rid of it. So basically, those ostriches should be able to provide antibodies to help to build some sort of medication to fix this stuff. But so therefore, they don't want that. They want to kill the whole lot. So they've got no reference to it, and I'm pretty sure that the Canadian Food Gestapo there are working specifically under WHO guidelines, which is exactly the same as they want to bring here in Australia under, like, the government now looking at setting up with a CDC, which is, they call that the Centre for Disease Control, the same as the bunch of scumbags who got in America who they call themselves that. And I believe that that's going to be the agency that would be used to enforce the WHO directives and orders about shutting down Australian farmers and Australian livestock, killing our livestock. And I know in Victoria they changed laws here just a few years ago about biosecurity. So biosecurity is being set up as the number one weapon against Australian farmers, and that in conjunction with the whole climate change rubbish about being able to shut down entire regions and areas under climate change modelling. You know, our Australian farmers, and I know plenty of them who are protesting against the windmills and the interconnectors and the transmission lines and that, you know, these people, and I know many of them personally, and they're terrific people, and I care a great deal about them, but they are so far behind the eight ball and just refuse to come up to speed with actually what they're dealing with and what they're fighting with. And as we've seen in Canada, people have been removed from their farms now by police, and we've got a lot of people here in Australia who say, you know, they're going to fight the electricity companies at the front gate. They're going to do this, that, and the other thing. I strongly urge these people to review the whole plan they've got, because they're not going to be stopping anything. They're going to end up in jail, and they're going to end up taking a whole heap of other people to jail with them. So, you know, we need to really have some kind of some sort of a summit, council of war, and work out what we're really fighting against before Australian farmers can do anything, and while we still have a slight chance, because as we're talking about now, Mike, and we'll explore this a lot more with Malcolm Roberts in the morning, you know, the biggest weapon that our farmers here fighting against all these renewable energy garbage things have got is social media, and they're in the business of shutting that down. So, you know, we haven't got much longer to be able to fight this, and people need to come up to speed with what they're dealing in reality And make no mistake, in the 80s and the 90s, I've been on picket lines for farmers, I've been on protests and all that kind of thing. But you better understand that the rules are about to change, and these people are going to get very, very nasty. And this stuff is being set up now to be used by the World Health Organization to just remove you or jail you, or even worse.
Tell us about the censorship that you mentioned before. What are you or others experiencing, and what information is being censored? And we know who by whom, but we'll ask you that anyway, by whom? So, in other words, how are they trying to shut you up?
So, look, a lot of people who do what I do talk about being shadow banned and having their posts taken down and all that sort of stuff like that. But I'd remind people that almost 11 months ago, about 13 months ago, in Canberra, Billboard Battalion set up a protest there in Canberra, Parliament House, against what they call a misinformation and disinformation bill. And I think they only lost getting that over the line by a couple of votes of a couple of crossbench senators. So this is how they intend to do things, is to create legislation banning misinformation and disinformation. Now, and this is all they have to do then is say, well, this is what misinformation or disinformation is, and then ban it. And they would then require, for a start, social media platforms to stop putting up information from people such as myself. Now, they've also created a commissioner, the e-safety commissioner, the e-Karen, to supposedly start enforcing this kind of a thing. So they only need to get the nod to say, well, there's some sort of an instrument's been created that anything against climate change, the narrative is now is disinformation, and that would be people such as myself by association. You wouldn't even have to say anything. They're going to say, right, these are the people who are talking this disinformation. We're seeing now that the Federal Terrorist Association, the Australian Federal Police have set up a wing or an agency now to talk about people against social cohesion. So what that means is anybody who says anything against what the government says, or the World Health Organization, or the WEF, or the UN says. Let's get very, very straight there. This government, who works for the international terrorist organisations, they are not the slightest bit interested in social cohesion. Neither are the federal police. And I would venture to say that anybody who is the leadership, and if you look at the new commissioner for the federal police, some massive big red lights and alarm bells going off there. So, the leaders of the federal police and all the state-based police bodies, these people are in on the program. They are not there to do the job right. They're not there to protect the Australian people. They're not there to create security or social cohesion. They are there to attack people who do not conform to the program, and they are a weapon. They are not doing anything that's any good. And I mean, when you look at the social cohesion crap, the government has brought in massive numbers of people from other countries with completely different cultures, and they've imported into our country people from other countries who are at war with each other, particularly in the Middle East. So therefore, if you bring in large contingents of each side of that war in the Middle East, you're bringing the war that's going on in the street, the social unrest, the friction, the factions. You're deliberately creating unrest, exactly the same as they have in England, Canada, Germany, France, the Nordic countries up there. So they're deliberately creating this problem, and now they're saying they've got to do something to fix it. No, sorry, that's just an agency they've set up to be able to attack and destroy people who would stand up and tell the truth.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, you're a Victorian, but you're still a nice guy. So I'm a Victorian too. Well, a former Victorian. But anyway, I probably lived in Hawaii longer than I have lived in Victoria in the last 10 years. But I'm just going to say that, or 20 years, just interesting. You mentioned Victoria and how they're going to make Victoria a safer place, which is of concern to everybody, whether you're in the rural, regional, or metro areas. And the New Zealand Commissioner, which is now the Victorian Police Commissioner, he's got this brand new plan that they're going, which is a great idea. Put more coppers on the street, start policing, doing what police should do, not take away liberties, of course, but do what they should do. Now, I want to ask you before I finish the story. The next state election would be, when would that be? Middle of next year, March?
I think it's about November the next year.
Okay, so what we have then, we have this U-Butte plan from the police commissioner, formerly New Zealander, looking a little sheepish. He said that this new plan of his, brilliant. Unfortunately, though, it's going to take quite some time. And the time it would take will be around about the election time. So if you want to win an election, what you do is you have new work, for example, which they've in China trying to borrow a chunk of change to build whatever they want to build. And they're also going to make sure that the crime on the streets and within communities has reduced. So that will be in operation, because it will take some time to do it, until the election happens. Out of all the stuff he's talking about, the delay of it happening and stuff, tell me this: how many, as a percentage, what percentage would he? I'm trying to get this out. What percentage would you expect crime to be reduced? Would it be 20%, 30%? This is his big initiative. This is this new commissioner's big initiative. Would it be 50%? What do you think if you're going to put all the police on the streets, have reservists and others working in the back room doing the paperwork, which is a great idea? Tell me this, and this is still to do with communities, rural communities and regional communities. What percentage do you think he's going to reduce crime, which will take a year to put into place around the election? What percentage? Tell me.
None.
No,
They
5%.
none, nothing. They don't need to, because what they have is a media that just goes, oh well, they're now addressing crime. They're really cracking down on crime. They're going to say, we've got all these terrorists now, these anti-social people who are creating problem. We're arresting them. We're doing this, that, and the other thing. When that'll be the good people who they're going after.
Yeah.
The best thing that they could ever do to reduce crime would be to arrest Daniel Andrews and our fearless Premier here, the one that took over from him. So I think that one of the best things they could do would be that. But keep in mind, Mike, crime is now over in Victoria. They went and bought some very, very expensive boxes they set up out inside some of the cop shops for everybody to hand in their machetes. So this is a great initiative from the government here to curb crime. This is a lot of people, a lot of foreigners that they've brought in who think it's okay to have machete fights in the main street of Melbourne or in the shopping centres. So they've spent millions getting these boxes for people to hand in these machetes. So this is a crap. Hey.
It's worked well.
Well, this is what the media will push. I mean, they saw I think the commissioner of police that they had in Maui at the time, when the cops were rounding everybody up and pushing them into the fires. I think that bloke came from America, and he had a very, very checkered past, let's put it that way. So any new commissioner of police in Australia, I have a very, very serious look at and go, these people have a bit of a track record now of being wherever disasters that the government causes occur. So I can guarantee you that they're not going to stop at crime here in Victoria. because they want crime, they want things that they can go crook about. So I'd say, how much do they have to stop it? If they actually started to deport some of these criminals, some of these people, then people would go, hang on, we're seeing some great stuff happen here, because the crime rate is through the roof. Nobody's safe. Home invasion, stuff getting flogged from your farms all over the place, and they do whatever they can to help that to happen, because they want that to happen.
Yeah, I totally.
And yeah,
I think it's all it's all coming to fruition, as they would say. Tomorrow morning, though, Malcolm Roberts and yourself will come to fruition. Tell us how someone could watch that or be part of that, and also tell us how we can also be part of Billboard Battalion.
So we'll be live streaming that on Billboard Battalion on our website. On Facebook, we'll be live streaming that as well. And we're on all the YouTubes, all the normal sort of social media that they've got going on. Where you don't get bounced off anyway by let's just say that. I think that if you look at all the normal social medias, Mike, you'll soon see us there. We're on the X's, and we're on all those sort of things, and the X seems to be the most important in terms of not being censored at this point. So all those kind of things, mate. And you can also find us at 3 W's, www.com, billboardbattalion.com. So we're on all of those, mate.
Always a pleasure, Wade, doing a fantastic job. Keep up the good work. Wade Northausen, founder of Billboard Battalion, here on the Country Telegraph. Welcome back to the Country Telegraph. Our guest is a very good friend of ours. Her name's Catherine Blakelock, founder of the Brexit Party. Catherine, thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Oh, sorry, good evening.
Good. Well, it's afternoon here. So for those in New Zealand, it's good evening. For you, it's good morning, and for us, it's good afternoon. That's how the convicts speak, Look, we're talking about the halal meat scandal. Tell us more. I mean, you've been doing an enormous amount of investigative work on the illegalities of halal meat, selling it to the public. Can you just, for those that aren't familiar with what you've been doing, can you summarise this very, very briefly, please?
Yeah, well, I started investigating supermarkets by slaughterhouse code in the summer and collected about 4,300 samples across the country of all different meat types, all the supermarkets, main ones, in 3 locations across the country, and then checked the slaughterhouse codes against with farmers and slaughterhouse people and against what we could find on the internet, and came up with the conclusion that about 70 to 80% of the British fresh meat was religiously slaughtered, and I use that term as opposed to halal, religiously slaughtered. And that's without the foreign meat, which is mostly the frozen stuff, which obviously we know what is going on in Australia and New Zealand to some extent, and there are other places. That doesn't include all the ready meals in Britain, which are completely unmarked. So that was the first thing I did. And in some meat types like lamb, it was even higher. It was at the point that it was in some supermarkets almost impossible to find anything that wasn't religiously slaughtered. And a friend of mine who you have had on the program, called Robin Tilbrook, who's a lawyer, and I decided to set up a GoFundMe. So we cannot ban halal. It is totally impossible. That would need an act of parliament, and there's no appetite in Parliament. Rupert Lowe, who's an MP, tried that and got 1 out of 650 votes. However, we believe that the law is being broken on an industrial scale. The law was set up nearly 100 years ago when there were about 2 Jews and 1 Muslim in the country. And it says that religious slaughter or halal for Muslims should be done by Muslims for Muslims only, not for the 93% of the population. And similarly with Jews, that they can kill their meat in a Jewish way for Jews. I have then set up a GoFundMe and put out lots of tweets. And what's the most extraordinary thing is the amount that we're finding in universities, hospitals, public sector, where it seems to be almost universal. Some of it is stunned, some of it is unstunned. From a legal point of view, what we're doing, it doesn't make any difference whether it's stunned or unstunned. That's not the point, but that's what the supermarkets hide behind. But we've got primary schools that are 99% white, where we have proof, letters from headmasters saying that they're serving halal. And they have also just said, well, it's fine, everybody can eat it.
First of all, I find Islam a very interesting culture or religion. I do. I find the Middle East I think it's fascinating. It's got so much history to it. Now, some violent, some not violent, as we do in other parts of the world. So no different, except I think there are some great history and just the experiences, I would imagine, are magnificent. Having said that, I don't understand if we went, and this is you probably will say, people will jump up and down. If I went to a Muslim country and did some things, they wouldn't be very happy because it's not what you do. And you should respect others' houses when you go into it. So we have countries such as the US, we have Europe and little nations of Europe and the UK and Australia, just those small places that are Western countries that are based on Christianity. So if you believe that that's how Western civilization, how it morphed into this stage, which is deplorable, by the way, at the moment, how can we allow, because cruelty is, take away the religious side of things, cruelty is it's abhorrent. We should not be cruel. And if you go through the Bible and the scriptures and stuff, it's got that common thread. You do not be cruel. So if we move to the religious, and by the way, you're dead right, it's not just religious. So this is just saving a few bucks. And the government doesn't care. But I'm just wondering, where has Western society failed or stopped caring about the lives of animals? Now, sure, they're going to die, which is if you're the animal, it's not much chop at all. But it's a way how, it's what we do. We're meat eaters. But the cruelty bit, and I had a friend who worked at the abattoirs, and we're no longer friends, so I just turned my back on him. He used to taunt the animals before they died. And so we have the halal killing. Can you just, if you don't want to hear this, anyone, block your ears, but you need to hear how inhumane it is and how it does not fit Western society. It just doesn't do it. Because if you say it is ethically better for you, then you are a non. It is not, there's nothing ethical about halal killing. It is inhumane. And I had this conversation with Robin Tilbrook last week. But Catherine, can you explain what your research has shown about these poor bloody animals that are slaughtered in the ethically halal manner?
Well, we've got halal which I would call real halal, and then we've got what we call pseudo halal, which is religious slaughter, which is stunned, which is what you've got in New Zealand and Australia, and in quite a lot of the meat here, and that's what they're hiding about. So, first of all, I will answer the question about the stun stuff, because the stun is the problem which they're all hiding behind. They say because it's stunned, it's fine. The difference, let's say, with traditional slaughter, I could put a bullet in your neck and I could call that a stun. That's what traditional stunning is. It's a bolt. The animal, particularly the sheep or the cow, are dead. They're non-recoverable. They may be unconscious for a few minutes, but they are dead. But I could give you a prick, or I could give you a 2-second electric shock, and I could call that stunning. And the animal or the human being is perfectly normal. They're fully recoverable. And that is the point about the stun stuff, that in my opinion, or our opinion, that the animals are getting a double torture. So they're being electric shocked for, well, let's go through animals in, this is stunned halal, and then I will go on to ordinary halal. Stunned halal and chickens, we don't think they're bothering stunning them at all. There's no difference. They literally pick them up by their feet and cut their throat. Chickens don't have a lot of blood, so they die fairly quickly. Turkeys are more problematic, much bigger. It's the sheep, mutton, the sheep, excuse me, it's the sheep and the cattle that are the problem. So, I mean, with the sheep, they can take a minute plus to die after they've had their throat cut, after being electric shocked, conscious. But cattle, you basically can't stun. I mean, I've been involved in horses. These cattle and horses, are 1,000 kg. They are massive animals. You shock them for a few seconds and you might as well have done nothing. And so it can take 3 minutes for these animals to die. They try to get up. There's one description of a farmer to DEFRA, which is our Food and Agricultural Ministry, which we've got a transcript of, where somebody was talking about it to this very hard-hearted agricultural administrator. And they were saying that the farmers were fed up with their cattle walking around the room or climbing the walls with their heads half cut off, to which the DEFRA farming person from the government said, well, they should be tied down more. So that is stunned halal. That's supposedly the good halal. The unstunned stuff, of which we now know that sheep are 30% in Britain, despite the population being 7%. The unstunned stuff is just nothing. You literally get the animal and you slice its neck, often and they don't hit the right spot. They have blunt knives. The animals just sort of wander around and you can see them. And then, of course, the other thing is what goes on before the actual cutting of the throat, because in traditional slaughter with the cattle, you would move the cattle into a pen and then a bolt would come down into its neck from above it and it would drop dead. That's it, finished. But this, you've got the cattle is this massive animal surrounded by fear and panic, flailing, which of course is why it's difficult to get the knife sometimes. There's also, they have invented these mechanical machines where they lead these cattle in and then they slice their neck. So I would say that, I mean, there's cruelty in the whole system. I mean, what we're doing with pigs is not better. But from a legal point of view, I must stress again, from what we're doing, the stun doesn't make the difference. The point is, and I don't think we should dismiss the religious philosophical problem. So just sort of, well, it's nothing. Because you were asking how we got here. Well, we've got here by dismissing that religious philosophical idea as well. because many people who are left wing or they're atheists, and you've got what I had an instance when I was talking to somebody last night. So this is a Hindu Nepalese person who was on a school board. Now, Hindus don't like halal. Sikhs, it's absolutely against their religion. And traditional Christians in Corinthians, etc., it was that you shouldn't be eating meat from a false idol. And of course, there are many people who don't like the Islamification of Britain. So even if the animal was perfectly fine, anaesthetized, etc. But of course, they can't be anaesthetized because they have to be awake to hear the prayer. There are lots of philosophical, religious reasons why this is a problem. But this man was talking about the fact that he'd been on a school board 3 or 4 years ago in an almost entirely white area, and there was one woman, a Muslim, who said she wanted halal served to her child, which would have meant the whole school would have had to be in halal. And she kicked off and threatened this and threatened that. And so how you get it into this position is either by supine administrators or fearful administrators, and one group making a massive fuss and nobody else making a fuss. That is the sort of dynamics of it. In this particular case, the school board were quite ferocious and had the backing of the governor and refused to do it. But in many cases where you've got bigger Muslim majorities or you've got very left-wing councils, they think it's fantastic. And then they've started, including in Australia, and I've seen the adverts, started promoting halal as ethical. I mean, how to twist something?
But it's a. I have to. When I go right back, because I was talking to Jen, producer and business partner and dear friend, and sometimes we get a bit concerned. I get a bit emotive at times, and I like to call out call a spade a shovel. And I can't be bothered playing games. I'm not going to lean either way. It's just if something's bad, you have to look at it and talk about it. The inhumanity of mankind at the moment to appease a select group. I mean, have we just gone? I mean, this is we should be talking about farming, but I'm just wondering, have we turned the whole world upside down? Because none of it goes hand in hand with and by the way, Western civilization is a very cruel civilization, caused a lot of wars and deaths, but it has Christianity as its basis. Have we turned the world upside down, and so that Christianity and Western civilization based on Christianity is bunkum?
Well, I think it's an alliance of Marxists and Muslims. And what will happen, obviously, we see it every weekend in London when we have transgender people marching with radical Islamists. Well, you know what's going to happen if the Islamists get in control is what's going to happen in Gaza this second as they're executing anybody. So we've seen these alliances before. I mean, I think the underlying push is global Marxism, global world government, combined with, like your last speaker, with the green agenda. And Islam is a useful partner. The problem with Islam is that Islam would like world governance too. I didn't personally thought your introduction was slightly soft. Let's put it this way. Afghanistan was a Buddhist country. Pakistan was a Hindu country. Lebanon was a Christian country. There are no survivors of the Arab slave trade. Islam is total domination. You can't leave the religion. So if you actually listen to what Islamists say in Britain and elsewhere, they want to take the country over, and the same in America. And I'll be very blunt about it. You can see it going on in New York. You can see it going on in Minnesota and Texas. So there's always this progression, and halal is one of those progressions. The other thing is, of course, halal doesn't just relate to meat. Halal means the same sort of derivation as kosher. It's good, it's clean. So we've got these major companies that are promoting it and paying it. So you've got Halal Vegemite. You remember that from 10 years ago? Do you remember that in Australia?
No, I mean,
Right. So
actually,
in
I
Australia,
do. I do.
do you remember? I can't remember what her name is because I'm not familiar, but she's quite the right wing firebrand from Queensland.
Mm.
And it was Australia First Party, possibly?
No, it was One Nation with Pauline Hanson.
Pauline Hanson. So she
Ah,
said,
wonderful
and there
person.
were a number of other people who said that halal certification, which is a massive business where it's not regulated, certainly in Britain it's not regulated, that these companies like Vegemite, and she actually used that Vegemite is paying for women's subjugation and that Vegemite has the halal code on it. So does Kellogg's, so does Nestle, so does some of Ben and Jerry's ice cream, so does Haribo jellies, jelly babies. So we have all these companies who stick halal things on their packets and then have to pay for it.
Mm.
And we've seen, just last week in London, a run in a charity run in a Muslim area which banned all women over 12 from competing. Now, that allegation in Australia that the halal certification was leading to going to fund terrorism was not upheld. And of course, even trying to research these things are sort of,
Mm.
at high level. You can't prove this stuff. We have a charity in Britain right now investigating, with lots of money being investigated for funding terrorism. So, it isn't without possibility that these things are linked. It's certainly halal is linked to immigration and immigration fraud. We had a situation where one takeaway imported 900 halal butchers, sponsored the visa for them. So
Mm.
why do we need all these halal butchers? And so you can see sort of the webs of stuff that this is involved in.
Mm. It's actually, and we're just touching the top of it. And by the way, we are not. We're not. We don't want to get a hello, 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 a knock at the door. We're just talking about. I mean, first of all, halal slaughter, which I think it's barbaric. That's what I think. I think
Yeah.
we need to. The idea of cruelty. It's just woeful. And I have to say, Catherine, and you and Robin have you sometimes put things in the back of your mind. You don't want to. You think, oh, I don't want to think about it. We have to think about it because that's a coward's way out, and it's already altered our eating habits because you cannot tolerate torture or inhumane activities towards defenseless animals. And I think that's my main beef at the moment, talking about halal killing. But I think we have to do better than we are, because not only are we seeing the torture of animals, we're also seeing the destruction of Western society, and it is happening in front of us, and we're doing nothing about it except going, oh, I've got to placate those. No, you don't have to placate anyone. If anyone's in your country, if I go to your country, I'm in your house, and I need to show respect. And if I go to another country, I need to show respect. And it works the other way around too. And that's my gripe. I think we need to show a lot more respect. And that's to how we treat those less fortunate, such as animals and people. And it's so I get very, very angry about it, and I get very, very opinionated, and I want to tell the world to go and bugger off sometimes, because I think it's an entirely cruel. It's become so consumed with appeasing those that are consumed with themselves, and I don't understand any of it. Catherine, I apologise for that, but I'm very angry, and you've alerted that these terrible practices, we should not put up with it, and it's part of being part of the West and our upbringing and stuff. You do not torture animals. Simple as that. I don't give a rat's if it's for the leader of Islam He wants to have a feast. You do not torture. Simple as that. So, Catherine, I'm going to calm down. I'm going to have my heart tablet later and have a whiskey. But you made some great points, and I would like to extend the invitation that in the next couple of days we do this again, because we haven't touched on even scratched the surface yet, and we need to stop this torture. That's what I think. Anyway.
Thank you. Yeah, it's ongoing, and there, you know, it's under. We have obviously a much bigger Muslim population, and we have. I mean, we are getting to the point where there have been photos of animals being hacked to death in the back of garages. For obviously, we have religious slaughter, but we have the festivals and things. There's some footage. There's footage that's too impossible to watch. And actually, Australian has just done some undercover. He's an animal rights activist, but an Australian animal rights activist has just produced a film on a halal small slaughterhouse in Britain.
Yeah, I just think it's that we need to wake up. And by the way, we are not. I can't speak for you, Catherine, but I am not anti-Islam. I think, as I said at the start, I think it's a fascinating religion or culture, and I think the Middle East has many things that we can learn from. But when you're in someone else's house, you need to show respect for that house. And if we don't do that, I think we're all buggered. Catherine Blakelock, Robin, I probably need Robin's help after this, being a good solicitor, and he has a couple of guns in his room anyway, and whiskey, which is even better, and a flag too. If somebody wants to find out more about you, if they want to help you, support you,
so if you go to my, basically at the moment, I have managed to raise quite a lot of money. We're sort of 3/4 of the way to the amount we need for the judicial review, which is a legal action against the government. And my Twitter handle is Blakelock BP, capital B, lowercase. So that's BLAIKLOCK, and then capital BP, which was for Brexit Party.
Thank you so much for your time. We'll talk shortly.
Thank you.
This is The World Today.